Hi, my name is Rachel, here with my cat Leia for as long as she'll remain, which it seems to work like clockwork, that. Anyway, this is an AuthorTube video, part of the Author's Answer series. The Author's Answer series was started by J.D. Archer, and I'll link to his playlist down below. I'm up to question number 5, which is, have you read any foreign language books? I actually did a whole video a few months ago about some translated fiction. I was just starting to read Jhumpa Lahiri's first foray into translating an Italian novel, and then I went into some Israeli novels that I had lying around, so I'll link to that video down below. I mean, for the contours of this question, I'm focusing on translated fiction because I can only read it in English. And because I did a whole other video on translated fiction generally, in a way, I thought I'd focus more specifically on one author who I have access to because of translation, and what I think his general message is in the works that he's published, that I've read, which I've only read 4 of a numerous amount, so this analysis is a little compromised. I started reading Amos Oz last year because of this movie by Natalie Portman, her writing and directorial debut, and she also starred and spoke in Hebrew. And it's the cinematic adaptation of A Tale of Love and Darkness, which is Amos Oz's biography, mainly of his parents, but it also covers a whole lot of other stuff. He talks about the past and the present with Jews in Palestine and then Israel. He was born a few years before the founding of the state in Jerusalem. He talks about his grandparents who lived in diaspora. He talks about his childhood memories concerning the bloody war for independence and the loss of his Arab neighbors. He talks about the dreams that Jews had for Israel and whether they were realized or not. I think I go into a lot more detail in my written reviews, so I'll link that down below, and also my reviews for the other books that I'll mention here. But what I want to discuss quickly in this video is how I believe that Oz is probing the idea of the murkiness of identity. I've read 2 of his short story collections, Between Friends and Scenes from Village Life. They both center around small communities, and these stories track individuals who may feel a little lost within them. There's a sense of unease pervading these stories about something being not quite right. The kibbutz in Between Friends was supposed to be this grand social experiment in secular living, but most of the people brought in their old beliefs in one way or another. And in Scenes from Village Life, I think people's identity struggles come from relationship struggles. Their pioneering village, which is older than the state, is a character in and of itself, as it changes from a dilapidated heap into something more glitzy and tourist-facing. So it's like the village is having an identity crisis too. Finally, I've read one novel by Oz. It's Judas, which was recently shortlisted for the Man Booker International Prize. It takes place within a still divided 1950s Jerusalem, where a young man moves in with a cantankerous old recluse and his mysterious middle-aged female companion. And then juxtaposed against this is the young man's research into the story of Judas Iscariot. So there's a magnanimity in this novel because it dares to probe the Bible and reinterpret one of its most famous stories. And then it applies these lessons and these questions really to the original characters. In the 50s, the question surrounding all of these people in Jerusalem has to do with the recent war for independence and the division of Jerusalem, and its murkier aftermath when it comes to the Arabs. People come down on different sides about what happened and what could have happened, and important political figures will be branded throughout history. Who is a traitor and who is loyal, and whose loyalty is seen as traitorous? How do other people get to interpret your identity? These are just some of my thoughts on, again, 4 of Oz's numerous works, and I wouldn't have had access to them at all without the translation efforts of Nicholas Delange and Sandra Silverstein. But to pivot a little for the end of this video, I thought I might mention another author, since apparently it's Women in Translation Month. I made this August TBR for myself at the beginning of the month, but recently I decided to shift it. Well, I just put a book on hold at my library and I hope it comes soon. It's All the Rivers by Dorit Rabinyan. It's a novel about a love affair between an Israeli woman and a Palestinian man. It made the rounds internationally for being banned in Israel, although that term isn't quite technically accurate. The Israeli Ministry of Education declined to add the book to a high school curriculum. And then that was followed by skeevy politicians making skeevy comments to rile up the base, as you do, concerning their fears of assimilation and intermarriage. But bad publicity can be good publicity, and this got the world, including me, interested in reading the novel. It came out in English this year as translated by Jessica Cohen. I'm actually most intrigued about how it's based on Rabinyan's real life, and her relationship with the Palestinian artist Hassan Hourani. She's done several interviews about the book, certainly during the banning incident and a couple of years ago, and then also more recently when it came out in English. There's a quote I like from her interview with the Jewish Book Council, and I'll leave the full interview below. In part she says, "I open a novel to explore my emotions. All the Rivers suggests empathy. That is the magic that literature has, empathy. Even by dipping into the identity of the narrator and characters you read, it makes you taste what it is to be somebody else." So there's that identity word again. Somebody else likes it too. And between Oz's murky identities and Rabinyan wanting to open the floodgates to different experiences, I feel inspired as a reader and as a writer. That's about it for me now. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the writers that you read in translation and what you think they bring to the table as creators. I'm also curious if anyone else is reading for Women in Translation Month. I'm certainly scouring BookTube for some of those things going on. I've been doing these questions sequentially, and I'm really thrilled that these two coincided with one another. So thanks so much for watching. Happy writing, happy reading, and I'll see you next time.